Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined by a very special guest. He is the No Money Millionaire, Mr. Dave Webb. How you doing today, Dave?
Ryan, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Man, I'm kind of excited with that title and introduction. Like your title, I'm kind of interested to see what you have to say here.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. I'm happy to tell you.
Okay, the number one question the audience is probably wondering right now: who is Dave Webb?
Well, Dave Webb is the No Money Millionaire now. And so that's been me now for the last couple years. And I'm born in Detroit. I'm out here in Oklahoma now, and how I ended up here, I don't know, but I think I'm here at the right time. So I'm happy to be here. And I've been doing real estate since about 2017, and been doing it professionally the last probably 5 years. And a lot of people from where I'm from in the inner city of Detroit. I grew up in the inner city, went to the Detroit public school system. And a lot of people from where I'm from, they ask me all the time, how are you doing what you're doing? And that's what kind of led me into creating my book and getting myself out there more to try to tell people they can do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to kind of dive in because I'm kind of excited to see how you got into this too.
Sure, sure.
What led you to start kind of coaching people up?
Well, exactly what I was just saying. I wish so. Where I grew up in the inner city, I didn't know anybody that owned apartments. I didn't know anything about passive income. Nobody taught all that. They matter of fact, they teach you the opposite. They teach you get a job and work for 30 years. Try to get, if you're lucky these days, try to get somewhere where there's some pension or some retirement, and then end up on a fixed income where you're living less than what you just worked the last 30 years to do for yourself. So um, I the reason I wrote the book is because I wish there had been knowledge like this handed to me 20 years ago or so. So my last 20 years would have been a lot more fun had I known this sooner. And I know a lot of people from there, that I'm trying to help. And so that led me into writing the book to start helping people on a more grand scale.
Yeah. So, what types of services do you provide then?
You know, um, my whole book is about, and I have it here. We can talk about it later. Later. I buy property without any of my own money, and that's what I teach people is possible. When you tell people, matter of fact, I had a lady that I worked with, and I told her about my book called The No Money Millionaire and buying property without any money. And she knows me. She knows I own property. She worked at one of them, and she said that doesn't even make sense. And some people just, it's hard for them to fathom that you can do this without having any money, that you can buy properties and own properties without having any money. And so, you know, that's, uh, that's the biggest point of it. That's what led me into writing the book, so that people that even know me still have a hard time believing it. So I put it out in the book with all examples of properties that I've purchased, how I've done them, stuff like that.
Huh. What role did mindset play in your transformation?
Mindset is the biggest role. And that's what I'm helping people with overcome right now. Mindset is the biggest hurdles and obstacles that people have to overcome. I'll tell you about myself. I did two no money deals coming out of Detroit. Like I said, I did the first no money deal in about the mid 90s. And my father was selling his house. And I was broke. I didn't have a job. I didn't want to, I wanted the house. And so when I walked in to visit my dad one day, he said, I'm going to sell the house. And I was like, well, I want it. And he laughed at me. He said, how are you going to buy it? You can't buy it. And I'm like, well, I want it. And so I just went on a mission. And I'm gonna, I've already said the 90s, so I'm gonna, expose my age here a little bit. But back then we had the yellow pages. So I just went to the yellow pages and I just started calling people that were lenders. And they first questions they ask, how's your credit? You have a down payment? And I was like, no, I don't have good credit. I don't have a down payment. So everyone laughed. Everyone laughed. But one person did not, and one person was willing to work with me. and say, well, let's see what we can do. And so I ended up pulling that one together. I brought my brother in as a partner. He brought the credit to the table. And my father, since this was a deal with my father, he was able to gift equity in the house as our down payment. So we ended up buying the house, no money out of pocket. And that was my first no money deal. Fast forward about 10, 15 years later, going back to your mindset. It was about 2007, before the 2008, 2009 crashed, and people were getting homes. It was just going crazy. So someone came to me and said, Dave, you can buy a house. And I laughed it off. I said, I can't buy a house. I still didn't have good credit. I didn't have down payment and mindset. I was turning myself down before I even attempted it. I was telling myself no. So mindset plays a huge role. You have to overcome your own obstacles, the limiting beliefs that's ingrained in us, that you need good credit, you need all your taxes in a row, you need the down payment. None of that is a solid guarantee. I mean, you can work around almost any of these issues. So my second deal came around. I just happened to find it on Craigslist, and seller finance. I think I came out of pocket $1,500 and I bought a house. It was after I've done 2 no money deals, and that one I sold, I did okay. It still wasn't in my mind that I could do a no money deal. I still thought I needed all the pieces. I was back to work. I was trying to save up my down payment money so I could try to buy a home just like everybody else. And after doing 2 no money deals, my mindset was still stuck with all those beliefs that I had learned my whole life, that I needed all these pieces. So even after 2 no money deals, I was still stuck in my own mindset. And it was about 10 years later that I started putting all that together, and I overcame that. And that's where I'm at today now. So that
What
all
did
my
you, what did you
yeah.
kind of have to do to overcome that then?
I just, well, for one, you have to start believing in yourself. You really got to start, thinking, I think I can, instead of I think I can't. You just got to start, like with mindset, like you said, you got to start rephrasing things. You have to stop thinking I can't afford that, and ask yourself, how can I fund that? You got to go from I think I can't to I think I can. And with that, what led me to that is, I read a lot. I read a lot of books from a lot of the mentors, and a lot of it I didn't understand. It was all kind of foreign to me. I like I said, I didn't have that upbringing. I didn't have anybody around that I could see owning properties. But I just kept reading. I just kept reading, and I just never let it down. I just had that positive mindset, and I just kept going forward with, how am I going to do this? How can I do it? It was that switch going from, I can't afford it, to how can I afford it? And when I started looking through that lens and that perspective, I started to be able to start figuring out the pieces I needed.
Yeah. What's the first mindset shift you teach people who feel stuck?
Well, exactly that. Start facing their beliefs. Start facing, like I have some instructionals that I give people, and write down what you believe right now is preventing you from owning real estate. Write them down and look at them, and really, really dissect them, and look at them, like, how true is it? And what did you write down? I don't have the funds. Well, then reverse that. How can I get the funds? I don't have credit. What can I do that doesn't require credit? Write down your all of your limiting beliefs, what you feel is preventing you from buying property today. And then let's see how we can rephrase that in a way that we can work with.
Huh. I like that. Like, just write everything down and just rephrase it. So it
Yeah.
sounds so simple yet hard to do.
Yeah. And you know what? I tell people to go back to it. Yeah, this is something I teach, and I do want them to write down, like, the top 5 beliefs that you feel stopping you right now. Why do you feel you can't buy property right now? Me, in my mind, I was like, my taxes weren't filed. I wasn't up to date on my taxes. I didn't have the down payment. My credit wasn't good. I didn't have experience to talk to a bank, all of these different things. So write them down. And then let's see how to overcome those, rephrase them, and let's see really how we can turn those. And really, when you start looking at them and you start questioning them, you can really start breaking those down and seeing that they're not as strong as you believe in your mind. Once you write them down, it's easier to break them down.
Yeah. What were some of the biggest adversities you had to overcome on your journey, and how did these shape you to who you are today?
Well, I went through a lot of struggles that everybody does. I've been evicted over 15 times. And luckily for me, I was a single parent, and luckily for me, my son would go back and visit Detroit during the summer, and I lived in an area. I lived in the desert at the time, so work really, really dried up. Pardon the pun. Um, Really dried up during the summer because it was like a snowbird type area where people are there during the winter and they don't live there in the summer. So work would get real scarce for me. So every summer when my son would go back to visit, our family, I was getting evicted. So every time he would return, he was young, so he didn't really realize what was going on. But every time he would return, it was to a new house.
Huh.
And over 15 times I was evicted. And so, going through those struggles and holding myself down. It was my beliefs that was chaining me down. That was preventing me from moving forward. And so, I was relentless. I didn't give up. I wanted to own real estate. I continued to read everything that I could about real estate. And when the first property came around that I could do with no money, it was just, again, I didn't even believe in myself. I reached out to a couple people. I proposed my idea, and I got the feedback back that was encouraging, and we ended up putting a deal together and getting me going on my first one. And then from there it all started clicking. Once I saw I did it once, there was no stopping me.
That's awesome. That's usually what it takes, is doing it that one time or then another, and then
Yeah.
that confidence starts rolling.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to happen. I just sent out texts, and I sent out to three different people that I knew, and I didn't really know them very well. One person was just an owner of a house that I lived in, and I'd never hung out with him before, and we weren't really friends. But I just I was thorough. I was thorough in what I presented. I did my homework. It was a multifamily. I looked at the rents, what they were getting, what they could be, and everything about it. And so when I sent it out to somebody, my homework was done. It was a thorough package, and it really gave them something to consider. And one of them we moved forward on it. And so but when I got the text and they said yes, let's meet, I was like, oh man. Oh, they said yes. I couldn't believe it, because up until that point I hadn't had anything going on in my life like that, so it was exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We all have limiting beliefs. How do you recommend identifying them and overcoming them?
Well, you have to, well, first of all, well, you have to identify them. You have to see what is holding me back from what I'm wanting. What is it that you're wanting? Is it, I specialize in talking about real estate, but it could be in relationships. It could be in, getting a promotion at the job. It could be anything that you're trying to better yourself with. You've got to really identify what is it that you feels preventing you from whatever it is that you're after. What is it that you feels preventing you? And me, like I've said before, write them down, address them. I'm a firm believer in vision boards and writing things down, and and thinking it into my life. And really, I think the first step is writing stuff down. Well, you have to identify them. What's preventing me from what I'm wanting, in whatever aspect that is. But I'm speaking on real estate. But what is it that's preventing me, or what I feel is preventing me? And then how do I turn that around and phrase it differently? And so that's my first thing I would say is really identifying them and addressing them.
Yeah. So you're a big proponent of visualization then.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have a vision board. I still use them to this day, and writing stuff down. I'm a big firm believer in writing it down, seeing it, and then trying to rephrase it or come at it from a different angle. Instead of seeing it as an obstacle, see it as a challenge. And
Yeah.
so that's how I address them.
Yeah. I don't think there's so many people that don't believe that you can manifest that stuff by just visualizing success with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they say you have to believe it. You have to believe it. If you don't believe it, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody's going to believe in you. So it really starts from within, and you have to really start changing it. That you believe you can do these things, and that's the way I said. I like to take them from being an obstacle and turning them into a challenge.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. What inspired you to write your book though?
Helping people. I had people calling asking me, and it really wasn't so much people calling and asking me. I just know, where I'm from and how I didn't have the information and how I went through most of my life not feeling that I was eligible to buy property, that realm was even available to me. And I know there's still people where I'm from and in other areas, not just in Detroit, but other areas, across the country that have those same limiting beliefs that are counting themselves out before they even try it just because of a lack of knowledge. And so I just wanted to provide the book to tell people it's it's out there. You can do it. I'm probably from similar situations that other people, their struggles and all that, and I've learned how to do it and I've turned it around. And so I wanted to give the book to everybody so they can do the same.
Yeah. I love that how you're just giving it to people and showing people that hey, it can be done.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I went through the struggles. Like I said, I've been through evictions. I've been through, my car's repossessed. I've lived that way. I came up out of the inner city. Didn't finish high school. Um, I've been through it. I've been through it, and it doesn't have to prevent you. None of that stuff is going to disqualify you from being able to buy properties. It's still available. No matter what your situation is, you can still make it happen.
Yeah. It would be something to kind of see if the school system kind of changed things around and
Yeah.
instead of like leading you to work a full-time job, like you said, for a pension, maybe a pension, and just
Yeah.
go work for 30 years instead of chasing down something bigger.
Yeah. They, where I'm from, and I've said this in my book, now you want to learn how to have money work for you. But coming out of what I came from and where other people are, all they're being taught is how to work hard for their money. It's the exact opposite. And you're never going to get ahead. You're never going to bridge that gap from working hard to be building wealth if you don't learn how to have money work for you and you're always working for money. And that's the big switch that we're not taught. We're not taught that, in those lower income areas, poor areas. They're not taught any of that. They don't have examples, probably don't have family members who's successful in doing it. So they don't see it. And all they're taught is go get a job. Go get a job and work hard. And it's different than that. You got to learn to make money work for you.
Yeah. What was your biggest challenge writing your book, and what's the story behind it?
I've never written a book before, so the book itself was a challenge, and it took me a long time. And I struggled with it. Again, it's those beliefs, those doubts, those doubts. I was like, I've never written a book before. Who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? Even trying to do this, but I knew I wanted to get the information out there. I wanted this information given to me when I was younger and I didn't know any of this information, any of this stuff. So that was my drive. I just knew there's a lot of people that really could use the information and be successful with it, like I'm doing, like I am today. They just don't know. They just don't know it. And so I wanted to get it, write the book so I can get it out as many places, get it online, and reach as many people as I can to really help them.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write, if you don't mind me asking?
Almost a year.
That's not too
Yeah.
bad for your first time.
I guess it's not a very thick book. It's not a very thick one, but I try to be thorough. I try to be
Yeah.
thorough. I went from zero knowledge to being able to close deals, different types of deals, and recognizing it all the way through. So I feel, very thoroughly on all the aspects that it takes.
Yeah. How can someone buy real estate with no money of their own?
Many ways, believe that or not, many ways. So I work with people on an individual basis. Some people that reach out to me and I work with them on an individual basis, and you really gotta find out their situation. So if someone's starting, like I've talked about before, they're starting with no credit, um, you know, maybe their taxes aren't filed, no money whatsoever. I tell them to look for, fix and flip opportunities. And so if people can actually do the work themselves, that's a thing I call renovation revenue. That's what I use. So I look for a property that's ran down, neglected. It's called value add. I look for a value add property. When you're buying it with no money down, you have the purchase price plus the renovation budget all wrapped in, and people will fund that. Hard money lenders, you can find DSCR loans if you're looking at multifamily. DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. That usually goes off the rental income and not the person that's getting the loan. So there's many different loans out there that will cover the full purchase price plus the renovation. And so now with me, like I mentioned, when I buy a property and I have the renovation budget, I do the renovations myself. So I'm creating myself an income from the day I close on the property. So I call that renovation revenue. So I create my own income. And that's before the property is sold, or if you get it rented, that's before any of that. From the day you close and you start doing the work, now you're generating income for yourself.
Huh. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, yeah. That's a big part of it with me. All my properties I renovate them myself.
So, how do you take an income from that? Are you like paying yourself to renovate it? Like you're,
Exactly. Well, you're going to pay someone to fix it up. So why
yeah,
why not you? And you just have to. Some of the concerns there is, you don't want to say, oh, well, I'm going to pay myself $30 an hour because I can. You really want to be diligent. You want to keep your budget right. But so if let's say you're going to pay somebody else to do it, and you're going to pay them $17.50 or $20 an hour. Pay yourself $16 an hour and do it yourself. So now you're saving the job money, and you're putting the income in your pocket while you do it. But someone's going to have to fix it. So if you have the ability, and I did a video about this earlier, and when you're doing fix and flips, or you're getting rental properties, maybe you don't know how to put the floor down, maybe you don't know how to hang drywall or do electrical, but it's going to need painted. You can probably paint. It's going to need, I landscape everything that I have to make the outside look better. You can do landscaping. You can they all need cleaning. You can do cleaning. So you don't have to be able to do every aspect of it, but you can do enough of it while other people are doing the other side, and put some money in your pocket.
yeah. I like that idea. For
Yeah,
someone
thank you.
just starting with nothing, what's the first step into getting into real estate?
Well, my next video is coming out. Is if I had to start from zero today, what would I do? So if I had to start from no credit, no money, nothing, there's 5 steps, and I'm going to be putting a video out about those. First thing I would do is I'd start joining any real estate investor group I could find. Go on Facebook, go to Bigger Pockets, Go to local REIAs, which is a Real Estate Investors Association. Start getting out there, introducing yourself. You're going to start finding off-market deals. You're going to start finding, going to meet wholesalers. You're going to start having deals open up to you. So the first thing I would do is get out there, start introducing yourself, start meeting people in the business. And then from there, reach out to hard money lenders, find people who do DSCR loans, ask them, what will it take for you to fund a deal? What do I need? How do I need to bring a deal to you so that you'll fund this for me? And let them tell you. That's their job. They want to give money away. They'll tell you what they need. And the better you can give them exactly what they're after, the better your chances are of getting the loan. And then, meet realtors. That's another angle where, another area is called expired listings. People had their houses up for sale and they never sold. So their listing expires. So that's somebody, for whatever reason, wanted to sell. Maybe they had to sell, whatever it is, and they didn't. So now you can talk to them and see how open are they to creative structures. Will they do a seller finance? Will they, do a lease, that you'll be able to lease to own? In any different structures, there's all these different areas. So get yourself out there, start meeting people in the real estate world, and then start talking to lenders and, start putting it together.
Yeah. So like you said you're getting ready to release a video on this and saying that, hey, if you lost everything, had to start from zero. How much is that confidence in yourself now because you've done it that you could do it again?
Oh, 100%. Once, I always heard people say that before I learned and I do what I did. But, growing up, I heard people say, oh, if I had to do it again, I can do it like that. And so I understand it now, because really what I do and what I'm teaching in the book is I'm a deal maker. I look for this piece, I find this piece, I put them together. And so that's always going to be there. Once you learn how to do it, that's it. So if I went to another city I've never been to, I'd get out there, I'd join all the local groups that I could. I'd introduce myself. I'd start meeting wholesalers. I'd start looking for off-market deals. And then I'd find a property, and then I'd find a way to get it. Hard money lender, private money partners, something, but I'd be able to recognize the deal and present it well and make it happen. So it's very doable.
Yeah.
And anyone can do it. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but anyone can
go
do
ahead.
it. That's the mindset. That's what changes. Once you get some experience and you've done it, you can do it again. The only difference about me from that guy who struggled and always discounted himself and counted myself out was the fact that I know I can do it now. I know I can do it, and there's no doubt about it. And that's the only difference. Nothing else has changed about me except my mindset.
Yeah, and you probably have a formula now too, like, hey, I know the steps, and I know my blind spots to look out for, so I can build this formula up and build these and replicate these steps again.
Yeah, that was an expensive tuition. I went through.
It usually is. The experience part is usually the expensive part, and why everybody quits in the middle of the process.
Well, that's why I wrote the book, to help people avoid those. I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just throwing stuff. I bought property. I learned this the hard way. I had a property, and I didn't know how to finish it. It was a value add. It was one of my first. It was a great deal. I hate the fact that this is the way it turned out. But when I finally had to cut my loss and sell it, the realtor said to me, he said, Dave, you make money when you buy, right? And I knew what he was telling me. So, I bought it wrong. I was way too much into it, and we ended up selling it for a loss. Had I known then what I know now, I could have renovated it like I did. I'd have made money on it, but I didn't. I didn't know it. And I bought it wrong. I lost money. And again, those are the mistakes I'm trying to help people avoid in my book.
Well, yeah, and that's why having like coaches and somebody who's been through that experience to help you and guide you is so important.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful.
How long does it usually take to start turning a profit on this?
I mean, I have a gentleman that's out here from California. I mean, from Detroit, and he lived in a building that I was trying to buy. I was leasing it, and I was trying to buy it, and the owner and I could never come to an agreement on a price, and so I finally just pulled out of it. And there was a person that was living in the property that I knew from Detroit, and I told him, I said, I'm not going to own it anymore. I mean, rent it anymore. So he had to find another place to live. It was a commercial store up front, but it had a really nice apartment in the back. And so he had to get out once I pulled out of the project. And he didn't have credit, didn't have his taxes right, didn't have a down payment. And on top of that, he had 4 dogs. Nobody's going to want to rent to him,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah, no one's going to rent to him. So he was stuck. And so he came to me and said, well, do I have a property that I would rent to him? And I said, why don't you just buy something? And there he went with, I don't have all these things. And I said, stop it. You see what I'm doing. And the book wasn't out at the time yet. And I said, you haven't even looked. And just one of those divine things. It just, he looked and he found a triplex, and it was a seller finance, and he negotiated with the owner to do some handyman work. He had a leaky roof on the front porch. It was coming inside one of the units. He was able to trade off the handyman work for the down payment. He was able to move in for no money out of pocket. It was a triplex. 2 units were rented. The upstairs unit was vacant. He was able to move into it. Now he was the owner. The day he closed, he was collecting rent. And he did all that with no money out of pocket.
That's crazy to think that you
Yeah.
could like own a own an apartment complex like with no money.
Yeah, yeah, and collect rent the day he closed. He went in
Yeah.
with no money and came out with money. He collected,
Yeah, and
and
I mean you have a revenue like generating property right there every
yeah,
month, and that's how wealth is actually created right there. You have something generating money while you're not doing anything.
he didn't ever foresee himself being a property owner. He kind of had counted himself out of that, and now he's already thinking about his next property. Now he's going to get where he's at. He's going to eventually rent it out because the 2 units pays the note for the seller
Yeah.
finance. So he's living rent free up top, but he's going to rent that out, and that one should be enough to work him into his next property.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
did it all with no money out of pocket.
I
But
mean, that's a story in itself right there.
yeah, and to go back to your question, you can get a fix and flip. I'm helping my son do one right now, and I told him I connected him with a hard money lender, and he got his first property, and he's looking to he'll be profitable off this very first one, and he's doing it in a different state. Now I'm here and I'm help guiding it because he's in California. I found one here, connected him with the hard money lender, but he did it all on his own. The hard money lender asked me if I would come on the loan. And I said I would because it was my son. I was going to help him, but I never had to. They were able to work it out themselves. He did it solely on his own. It was a no money deal, and it's going to be renovated, and he should be profitable on the very first one.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So you
What
can
does
make money right off the bat.
yeah?
Sorry.
What does financial freedom really mean to you, and what does it take to achieve it?
Financial freedom 100% means your time. It means it frees your time, gives you your time back. I didn't have financial freedom when my son was younger. So, I was faced before where my son was involved in a school activity, and I was faced with my job wasn't going to let me go to go be part and see it. I had to be at work that day. So I had to make a decision, do I keep my job or do I go visit watch my son at his school activity? And so, those are horrible decisions. And so when you're doing something like this, you're able to have the freedom of your time and with your family, with yourself. That's the biggest thing about financial freedom. And that's to me what the word freedom means, is being able to do that, be there when you need, with who you need. And not having to worry about losing your job or any consequences, because, you know, you had to be somewhere or you wanted to be somewhere else. So, um, and everyone has their own level of financial freedom, what it's going to take. And I addressed that in a previous video that I put out on my YouTube channel, that to me, I had a W-2 job. You know, I had a regular wage job that I was getting taxed, and I knew how much I was bringing in each week from that, or each month from that. And so I needed to build up enough rental properties that would cover that wage, equaled that wage. And that's when I knew I could quit my job, go into real estate full time. And that's what it took for me, you know, was being able to cover where I was. And from there, you know, I just steady building it further from there.
Yeah. How could our listeners take steps to becoming financially free?
Yeah. Well, with me, it would be real estate. You know, I don't pretend to know any other areas. With real estate, though, you can, you know, multifamily properties, rental income, or, you know, fix and flips, or, you know, just flips. You can always, you know, look for stuff that you can find a good deal. If you look enough, there's deals out there. And, you know, and like I just closed on 9 properties, and in my town here where I'm at, and they were selling it as a package. They wouldn't break the houses apart. I think it was because they were doing like a 1031 exchange. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but that's when you sell the property, you can offset the taxes by rolling it into a bigger or a similar property. And so, since I believe it was a structure like that, he wasn't able to break the properties apart. But I knew there was demand in that area for single family homes. So I ended up buying the 9. And then the day that we closed, we broke them apart and started putting them on the market individually without renovating them, without doing anything. And I did that with no money out of pocket. And I've got them currently. I've got them on the market right now. I'm under contract on 2 of them. But yeah, that was just buying them, recognizing the opportunity, breaking it apart, selling it. I didn't have to renovate it. We didn't do anything to it.
Awesome. How can people get a hold of you?
You know, you can just Google No Money Millionaire. I'm going to pop up, but you know, nomoneymillionaire.com is my website. And you know, I have the book on there right now as a free download. You know, I talk about people in financial, you know, dire straits. And so I didn't want my book just to be sold on Amazon. So right now it's available for free. So there's really nothing that should be holding anybody back from getting this information and getting started. So that's at nomoneymillionaire.com. You can find me on my YouTube videos at No Money Millionaire. And, you know, the book's available at Barnes and Noble and Amazon, and then also the No Money Millionaire on Instagram. But yeah, you can just Google it. No Money Millionaire, you'll find me.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the show notes too for everybody to find too.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
You know, normally when I get asked that question, I just say mindset, you know, and you've covered that. You know, I appreciate being on your show, and what you're providing is a great service. But it's mindset. All of this comes down to mindset. You know, I've already mentioned it earlier in your show tonight that I'm no different than the guy who struggled. I'm the same guy. I have the same, you know, I didn't go to college. I didn't get any different education. Nothing changed except my mindset and being able to look and see these deals and believing that they're possible. You know, before someone told me I could buy real estate, I told myself no. I never even tried. I just, in my head, I knew, well, I don't have taxes. I don't have the money. I don't have the credit. And I just shot myself down. But what I'm doing right now, none of that mattered. So the biggest point that I usually try to touch on is mindset, and just believing in yourself, and then just finding a book like mine, or just finding the information that's telling you now what to look for.
Yeah. It's crazy how shifting that mindset to from I can't and all these excuses to I can, I'll find a way.
Yeah.
Like how drastic like things happen, how much momentum you gain from that.
Yeah. We all hear about optimism and pessimism and the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. The glass is both all the time. The glass is both. And so it's just how you choose to look at it. So, I think I can, I think I can't. It's really your mindset. And it's that switch, like you just mentioned, it's that switch that's going to propel you to greatness. It's going to change your situation. It's just really how you start looking at your situation and more as a challenge now instead of an obstacle or a wall.
Yeah. What I think too, what people don't understand at times is that to develop that tough mindset, you got to go through something like really drastic to start developing that mindset. It just doesn't, you don't wake up to it.
Oh no, it's a struggle. It's your internal struggle. You have to fight yourself. I did 2 no money deals and still didn't believe I could. So I did 2 of them. And I mean, I knew firsthand that I had done 2 of them, but I still did not believe or know that I could do that after doing 2 of them. And so it is a struggle, but it starts with, hearing someone, like what you offer on your podcast, hearing someone like me who's actually doing it, that's telling you it's possible. And now you have to know if he's doing it, so can you. And so you just, and like I tell people, face what you believe is your obstacle. Write them down, face them. And instead of looking at them as the roadblock, just look at it as the challenge. And I can't afford this. How can I fund this? Just start presenting it differently. But it's all how you just perceive it. It's either half full or half empty. It's just how you're looking at it.
Yeah, completely agree with that. All right, final question. What is
Okay.
one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
Um, just like myself, when I shut myself down, stop it. Start, knowing that you can, you see it being done, you hear it being done. I'm not the only one telling you that there's no money deals out there, that you can buy real estate without any money. I'm not the only one saying it. It's true. It's possible. So you just have to stop, doubting yourself. You have to, learn to start facing those as challenges, but just know that you can. Just know that you can and be determined to get it, because that's what it took for me.
Yeah, great advice right there. Hey, Dave, thank you for coming on here and sharing your insight here. It's kind of enlightening to kind of hear how you did it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for providing a platform like this. It's very helpful. It helps get the word out. My book's out sitting on Amazon, but if people don't know it's out there, it's not going to go anywhere. But
Yeah,
everyone that is listening, the book is available for free. It's a free download at nomoneymillionaire.com. Don't let it go. Just grab the information, get it, start putting it to use. It'll change your life.
yeah, awesome. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.
Yeah, that's true.